Today here on KTN News, you're privileged to have ICT Cabinet Secretary Owalo, not a new face on KTN News, and we want to discuss about matters ICT, the country going digital. This is a subject that has been so dear to the president, and also, of course, the connectivity, ICT connectivity in the rural areas. How successful has it been? Waziri, thank you for joining us here on KTN News.
Thank you too. It's a pleasure to host you here.
And it's a pleasure to always have you in KTN News.
Yes.
First things first, how has it been being an ICT and Digital Economies Cabinet Secretary?
Well, it has been quite fruitful, to say the least, from the very onset. You see, this is the first time that I'm being employed. I've never been employed before in my life. Okay. So at the beginning, I had to effectively manage the change process from private sector to public sector. But I settled in quite fast because in government has got its own way of doing things guided by operational procedures, guidelines, protocols, which I had to get accustomed to. And there's also a working culture, which I had to adapt to. So I settled in quite fast and hit the road running. And I would say without fear of contradiction that we are on the right trajectory. But let me also mention from the onset that, informed by the mandate of this ministry, we have been tasked to implement an integral component of the overall Kenya Konza development agenda. If you remember, in our Kenya Konza development plan, which is now the overall policy framework on the basis of which all interventions in government is anchored, the digital superhighway is not just a standalone thematic area, but it's also an enabler to all the facets of the Kenya Konza plan. This is because, in the wisdom of the drafters of the plan, ICT is a critical success factor for government moving forward. So what I'm trying to espouse is that as a ministry, we have got the challenging task of not just delivering on our mandate, but also facilitating effective delivery of all facets of the Kenya Konza plan from an ICT component.
All right,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
And it will just be interesting to know, and I mean Kenyans will also like to know,
yes,
when you're being given this position,
yes,
did you ever envision yourself being a cabinet secretary? And if so, which ministry would you have thought to be probably the president would have given you?
You know, it was not my priority to get preoccupied with positions. That really was not my interest. When I decided to work with William Ruto, when he was then the deputy president, and that was way back in 2020, I made a deliberate and conscious decision to work with the then deputy president, William Ruto, because I believed that we needed an agent of change. And we needed a paradigm shift from politics of rhetorics, politics built around tribal enclaves and tribal chiefs, to a politics which is more issue-based, that will bring Kenya together as one community. And I felt that Ruto was the agent of necessity that we required from a presidential candidature perspective. So that was a conscious decision I made based on conviction. It was not in anticipation of appointment to any position. That was not my preoccupation. And I've played a part in this country from the private sector perspective. I've developed most of the strategic plans in this country, whether they are for government or parastatals. I believe I've made my contributing component so far. But if it necessitated that I now migrate from the private sector to public sector to also contribute in that space, then so be it. So I'm glad that I'm in this position. I've been tasked by the president to deliver on an integral component of the overall Kenya Konza development agenda, and I'm ready and willing to serve.
You're ready and willing to serve.
Yeah.
But then when you travel across the country, we've seen you traveling across the country,
yes,
initiating different ICT
yes,
projects. How
yes,
does the country respond to those initiatives of connecting rural Kenya to the world?
You know, this is a transformational agenda. So first of all, you need to carry Kenyans along. A transformational agenda is always part and parcel of a change process. So first of all, people need to appreciate the rationale or the justification of our digital transformation agenda. Why? Why are we going digital, for example? When we talk about rolling out 100,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable, why are we doing that? We are doing that because we want to connect each and every part of this country that was hitherto unconnected by way of fiber to have reliable and stable internet. People need to understand the rationale, and that is the rationale. When you are talking about the establishment and operationalization of the 25,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots, which we have been tasked to deliver, people need to understand that the objective of this is to facilitate the Kenyan people to leverage on technology for purposes of e-commerce. In the world of today, our mothers and sisters who are itinerary traders in the market don't need to have a physical interface with the buyer of the what? With the buyer of the commodity. Recently, we did launch, together with the Ministry of Trade, the e-commerce strategy. As a ministry, we have just developed the National Addressing System policy and bill, on the basis of which e-commerce and last-mile deliveries can be anchored. So we are going to transition from the normal way of doing business to the new way of doing business through e-commerce. So people need to understand all this. So what I'm saying in short is that at the beginning, people were skeptical because this is a change process, and that's normal with any change process. Anytime you are introducing change, quite a number of people become skeptical. They say, no, I don't believe this change is going to work, or this type of change has been tried before, it has failed. Others wait to see whether the change process is working or not before they are on board. But I would state without fear of contradiction that as we speak, Kenyans have actually understood the rationale of our digitalization agenda and appreciated that the only way we can facilitate effectiveness and efficiency in service delivery to the people by government is through digitalization. The only way we can enhance our revenue base is through this, again, digitalization. The only way we can seal out revenue leakages within government is through digitalization. And Kenyans are appreciating this process based on the rationality.
And you know, it's good when you're explaining,
yes.
You were talking about, you know, when you're explaining, you're talking about, you know, the free Wi-Fi that Kenyans would need to enjoy
yes.
on the daily basis. And
yes.
the Kenyan will be asking, I have not come into contact
yes.
with the free Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have rolled out quite a number of Wi-Fi hotspots. As we speak, we have rolled out a total of 1,261 Wi-Fi hotspots. Another whopping 1,000 Wi-Fi hotspots have been rolled out by the private sector. So far, within the first 1 year in government, we have managed to roll out about 2,000 Wi-Fi hotspots. Our target is to roll out a total of 25,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots spread evenly all over the country. Mm-hmm. For a start, we are targeting the markets, we are targeting the bus terminal. Mm-hmm. The markets, because that's where the bottom of the pyramid operators in itinerary trade are domiciled. We want to facilitate them, through Wi-Fi connectivity so that they can pursue their businesses courtesy of e-commerce. We are also targeting the bus terminal because that is where a substantial proportion of our youth are usually operate from, idle around, and they can actually get involved in gainful economic activity courtesy of internet connectivity. And again, another opportunity, space, enormous space that now we have by way of opportunity is advancing the levels of education of the Kenyan population courtesy of the Open University that is domiciled at the Konza Technopolis. It is an open university in the sense that it is virtual. You can attend classes virtually.
We shall be getting into that later on at CS about the Konza, virtual classes.
Yeah.
And it's good you've already explained to us in terms of ICT connectivity, the level that we are as a country.
Yeah.
But what level did you find Kenya when you became the ICT boss? And how would you rate your efforts as, you know, of course, when you came into the ministry and also in January?
Yes.
Yeah.
First of all, I came into this ministry as a change agent and transformational leader to make things move for the better, okay? And I've been very, very focused on this, and my eye is on the ball based on the objectives that I've been tasked to deliver, and working with the people that have gotten within the ministry and the government agencies. When we came in, one, we had very clear objectives. roll out the 100,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable, establish the 25,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots, set up the 1,450 digital hubs, digitalize government services, revitalize Postal Corporation of Kenya, revitalize the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, revitalize the Kenya News Agency, re-engineer the operations of the government advertising agency. Those are major interventions in the marketplace. And that is an indicator that we were not operating at optimal levels in all those facets. The level of internet connectivity in the country was wanting. The coverage of fiber connectivity was below optimal levels. The level of digital skilling was wanting. Quite a number of organizations or agencies under the ministry, falling within the functional mandate of the ministry, were either on their deathbeds or were operating below optimal capacity utilization levels. So as we speak, we have made fundamental progress. Against the target of 100,000 kilometers of fiber, we have so far, within the first 1 year, managed to roll out 8,461 kilometers of fiber. We had a slow start because of procurement procedures and challenges and funding challenges, which took a bit of time. But now we are on the right trajectory because we have already onboarded the contractors in all parts of the country that need to be connected based on a proper mapping, and we are good to go. Coming to the Wi-Fi hotspots, we have rolled out as government 1,261, private sector another 1,000 or so. So we are actually in good stead in that space. We have already attained a level of about 2,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots. On digitalization of government services, when we came into office, we only had a meager 350 services about the e-citizen platform. As we speak today, we have managed to onboard about 12,600 government services which are now available on the e-citizen platform and which Kenyans can consume virtually from the comfort of wherever they are. Coming to the area of digital skilling and digital jobs, we have managed to train a total of 390,000 youth and correspondingly created 119,000 digital jobs. This is a fundamental intervention again in the marketplace because we have been facing the challenge of unemployment.
When you talk about creating digital jobs for the young people in this country, that is very fundamental. Is it creating a job in terms of government employment, of they've been employed in the private sector, or they've started their own
what happens
businesses?
Is that we are training the youth, customized training of the youth, based on job opportunities which are available in the digital marketplace. You see, the traditional way of training in this country is to enable somebody, let somebody go the full hog from primary school up to university. After university, they look for jobs. But in this instance, we undertook a rapid training needs assessment in the digital space to determine the skills, competencies, and capabilities that are required in that digital space for purposes of the digital jobs which are available in the market. So we have come up with a customized training, which currently is progressively being rolled out by our School of TVET, to enable our youth acquire skills, competencies, and capabilities that are aligned to the demands of the digital job market. So this is basically demand-driven training. That is what we are facilitating as government. But our interest is not just the digital skilling. Our ultimate objective as government is to utilize the digital space to sort out the unemployment problem and challenge that we have been facing in this country. So correspondingly, we are linking up this youth as government with global technological companies by way of digital jobs so that they acquire digital jobs. And those jobs are available on the virtual platform.
All right, so let's talk about numbers for a bit. And you know, there is the other 5 billion shillings. I know you're aware of that from the Universal Service Fund, that is the USF. For the digital superhighway. Which are the 19 counties that are unserved and underserved that will benefit from the 2,500 kilometers of digital superhighway?
We did a mapping and identified the so-called 19 counties that are underserved, that deserve the rollout of the digital superhighway. And just for purposes of clarity, these 19 counties are Turkana, Mandera, West Pokot, Tana River, Baringo, Lamu, Elgeyo Marakwet, Kilifi, Samburu, Kwale, Marsabit, Kitui, Laikipia, Makueni, Isiolo, Kajiado, Garissa, Narok, and Wajir. But coming to operationalization, we are realizing that there are also other deserving areas that need to be served. Now, these 19 counties are going to be served with the funding that we got from the Universal Service Fund, the 5 billion shillings. But simultaneously, we have also gotten some funding from the World Bank, courtesy of the World Bank's Moonshoot project, which is supposed to go towards the Kenya Digital Economy Acceleration Program. So that funding from the World Bank is also going to go a long way in facilitating digital infrastructure within which ambit the fiber.
And what figures are we talking about from the World Bank?
About 35 billion shillings.
Okay.
Yeah. And part of it is going to go towards the digital infrastructure. Part of it is going to go towards the digital skilling. Yeah. And part of it also is going to go towards digitalization of services. Yeah.
So we are talking, because when I'm looking at those counties you've mentioned,
yes,
it looks like the government is targeting more the arid and the semi-arid counties.
Naturally, you would expect that they would be underserved. You know, you need to first of all appreciate the mandate, rationale, and scope of the Universal Service Fund, yeah, so that you see the justification in directing the funding from the Universal Service Fund to those areas. What happens? We are not dealing with, in this telecommunication space, we are not dealing with a perfect market situation. The private sector, more so the telecommunication companies, will deploy digital infrastructure in those areas which they perceive to be profitable from a profit perspective. But as government, courtesy of the Universal Service Fund, we come in as agents of necessity to ensure that there is connectivity to those areas that may not be profitable to the what? That may not be profitable to the private sector, the telecommunication service providers. That is why the 19 counties that were identified for this purpose are largely those areas that have been underserved by the private sector. Yes.
All right. And so let's now move on to Konza.
Yes.
What you were mentioning earlier on, but how, Kenyans would like to know, how is the progress of the Konza Technopolis, Kenya's Silicon Savannah?
The Konza Technopolis is our own version of the Silicon Savannah. We envisage that Konza, if it attains optimal capacity utilization levels, should be able to contribute up to 10% of our GDP. And that was really the vision that was aspirated in the Kenya Vision 2030, okay? As we speak, fundamental progress has taken place in Konza. We already have the horizontal infrastructure in place. By horizontal infrastructure, I'm talking about roads, I'm talking about water, I'm talking about sewerage system. That is in place. You see, Konza is meant to be a smart city. Yeah. So what do you mean by a smart city? It is ICT inclined, but then what Konza as an institution, the government through Konza needs to do is to put in place the requisite infrastructure and let the private sector come in and invest. That has been the focus at Konza during the phase 1 of project implementation. So we have done the roads, we have done the water, we have made sure that there's a reliable electricity supply. We have ensured that there is a fully fledged data center there. The Konza data center, as we speak, is home to 53 government ministries who are already storing their data there. We have an additional 19 private sector players who are also storing their data at Konza. We have the KAIST University, which is already Kenya Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, which is supposed to be a science-inclined advanced institute of learning. That is already coming up. It's at about 20% completion rate. We have already constituted the board and operationalized it. That is work in progress. The Open University is domiciled on the Konza platform. That is another fundamental achievement because it means we already have the requisite infrastructure, cloud infrastructure at Konza. Again, as we speak, Konza is the entity that is driving the digital skilling, government's digital skilling and digital jobs program. Yeah, it is our agency for implementation of that. The rollout of the 1,450 hubs will largely be driven by the Konza Technopolis based on or informed by its digital what? Its digital infrastructure. So really we are in a good state, and now we are actually progressing to Konza phase 2 of onboarding now the private sector investors in various facets. The other area where Konza is going to be proved very useful is in digital entrepreneurship. For a start, with our digital infrastructure rollout, where we are having the fiber, the Wi-Fi, and the digital skilling program on course, and then on the other hand, where we are already digitalizing the government services, one anomaly we have detected in the marketplace is that not many Kenyans have access to affordable smartphones. Yet we are telling Kenyans that, look, you can consume government services from the comfort of wherever you are. So we have detected that anomaly in the market, and we want to fill in that void as government by ensuring that we bring into the marketplace affordable smartphones. So as we speak, the government, in partnership with the private sector, has already established and operationalized an assembly plant for cheap smart-enabled telephones, which was launched by His Excellency the President on 30th of October last year. It has, as we speak, attained a capacity utilization level where it is able to churn out an average of 4,500 phones per day.
So when are we likely to see these phones?
These phones are in the market.
They're in the market.
They are in the market. They are available they are neon phones. That's the brand, neon phones. They are available in the Safaricom outlets. They are also available in JTL outlets. As we speak, they have churned out a total of 194,000 handsets. Progressively, we envisage a situation where annually we should be able, through that plant, to churn out about 3 million affordable handsets. But moving forward, this plant will be domiciled at the Konza Technopolis, but we will now be migrating from local assembly to actually local manufacture of affordable smartphones. That is the long-term objective. And we also want to go a step further and embark on manufacture of both computer hardware and computer software within Konza.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yes.
If implemented.
Yeah.
You know, not just assembling, but also being manufactured here in the country.
Yes.
And it can definitely open so many jobs for the young people here in the country.
Yes, yes.
And talking about that, of course, I know you've mentioned it a bit in terms of training of the young people in the digital sector.
Yes.
And you know, but since Kenya Kwanza took over the leadership of this country, that was in 2022, there are jobs that have been created in the ICT sector.
Yes.
How many and in what capacity?
We have managed, we are doing the training, as I mentioned from the onset. We are doing the training and also correspondingly linking the trainees to digital jobs. As we speak, we have trained 390,000. We have created about 119,000 digital jobs. These are jobs in the digital space, and they tell things like graphic design, things like coding, jobs like online marketing, you know, just to mention but a few. The jobs are actually available on the digital space. So once somebody has undergone the training, somebody will click into the jobs portal and then find the opportunities which are there. And then based on the skills, competencies, and capabilities, he'll be able to match the skills with the job, the demands of the job, because you actually have to match your skill set with the jobs which are there. This is a transformational intervention in the market, my sister, because it is unbelievable. When the president launched this initiative at the Kabete National Polytechnic, we were told by one of the trainees there that 6 months after Form 4, on onboarding this program, he was already earning up to 200,000 Kenya shillings per month. That is a game changer for this country.
So 200,000 shillings per month?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what kind of a job was that, the digital job?
You see, you are paid based on performance. The harder you work, the more lucrative it becomes. And you can do multiple jobs at the same time based on time available at your what? Disposal. And you can do these jobs at any given time of the day. So this really is a major intervention also in the market, because it is part and parcel of, one, transforming Kenya into a gig economy. A gig economy where you can work for different entities at the same time. Yeah, you are working for one organization in the morning, a different organization in the afternoon. In the evening, you are working for a different organization altogether, or doing your own thing again in that online space. That is a gig economy. We are on the threshold of going there. We are also on the threshold of turning the country into a 24-hour economy, because you can work at any given point in time. You don't need to have to confine yourself to the daytime, because most of the organizations which these youth are working for are based in America, are based in Belgium, based in Singapore, based in India, just to mention but a few. Based on the time differences, our youth work at night, for example. So this is one of the key performance indicators that espouses that through digitalization, we cannot just not only turn Kenya into a gig economy, but we can also turn Kenya into a 24-hour economy.
But then I'm just trying to look at a young person here in the country who is saying, you know, Waziri, I'm not in a position, because you're talking about this digital training through the TVET institutions, and you know, there's a young Kenyan outside there who's saying, you know, Waziri, I can't even afford that school fees. Is there any other way the government can can actually come to my rescue? You know,
we are not charging the youth for this training. No, as government, we are providing this training for free. That's why I'm telling you it's a fundamental intervention in the market. What we are doing is that we have the customized training. What is going on at the School of TVET is not for the students to be trained at the School of TVET, but we are undertaking what is called training of trainers course, so that we have got adequate capacity at trainers level to roll out the training programs. Right. You see, what we are going to do, we are going to set up the 1,450 digital hubs, courtesy of a partnership between us as government and Parliament through the National Government CDF fund. The CDF, the members of Parliament, are going to give us the structure where we can go and deploy the devices. As government, we will deploy the devices. We will undertake or facilitate the training for free. We will connect the internet, and then we will connect the youth to the what? Do the training and connect the youth to the jobs. But this requires that we also have a critical mass of the trainers. So what is going on at the School of TVET is the training of trainers, TOT training, so that we have got adequate capacity of trainers who can go and train other trainers for purposes of having adequate capacity of trainees within the digital hubs, the total of 1,450. We are going to have a digital hub in each and every what? In each and every constituency. So for purposes of clarity, the youth will not be asked to pay for this training. No.
So you just go to a TVET institution and enroll yourself.
And it is amazing, my sister, because imagine you have got in each and every ward, right there in the village, somebody domiciled there, working for an American company, being paid in dollars, earning up to an equivalent of 200,000 shillings. That is enough money for that youth to look after himself, pay school fees for the younger siblings, and even support the aging what? Parents. But cumulatively, because the youth, they also save. The money that they earn, they also save. We are looking at a situation where these youth are going to become entrepreneurs themselves. Because once they have acquired the skills, they have saved the money, they can go and set up their own small digital hub outside. Then they end up becoming entrepreneurs as opposed to job seekers. This is quite transformational.
All right.
Yeah.
And where do you see the country when it comes to ICT connectivity by 2027? You're not far from 2027.
2027, we should have rolled out the 100,000 kilometers of fiber. We should have rolled out the 25,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots. We shall have set up and fully operationalize the 1,450 digital hubs. We shall have digitalized all the government services and digitized all the government records. And with that infrastructure and affordable handsets, we will be running a paperless government. Okay? We will be running a paperless government, leveraging on technology. We will not be having physical interface between members of the public and government offices, it will be very minimal. That will sort out two things. One, the unemployment problem for the youth will be sorted out, courtesy of the digital hubs. The human traffic to government offices will dramatically be reduced, and which means we are going to sort out even the traffic problem that we have been witnessing. We will end up with so many players who are not involved in gainful economic activity getting into the economic activity bracket. And by extension, they'll be getting into the revenue, the tax bracket. We will be in a situation where, as a country, we will be able to collect adequate resources internally within our Kenyan economy to finance not just payment of our external debt, but we also be having adequate resources to facilitate our domestic public expenditure and also recurrent expenditure. So we will be a sustainable economy, internally sustainable economy. The level of efficiency and effectiveness in government will dramatically be enhanced courtesy of digitalization. We shall have sealed out all revenue leakages. With all this cumulatively, the sum total, in my view, is a situation where we shall have effectively positioned Kenya as the ICT hub of Africa and even on the global stage by way of comparative advantage.
All right, so let's get into this media industry that we are in.
Yes.
Me being one of them.
Yes.
And we have seen that media houses in Kenya are suffering, and this, of course, has led to loss of jobs.
Yes.
But my question would be, what are you doing? What is the government doing through your ministry to help media houses survive in the changing times?
First of all, we need to understand the role of government, not just in the media industry, but in all facets of the Kenyan economy. The role of government is to put in place an enabling policy, legal, and regulatory framework that would facilitate a stable environment for the private sector, a palatable environment for the private sector to survive. Create an equal footing for everybody, the media inclusive. I empathize with the challenges that the media is facing. Some of the media houses are performing below optimal levels. But this really fundamentally is because of changes and dynamism in the operational environment. You see, the target audience of the media, of the target market of the media, has migrated to the digital space without prior notice. So the media is playing catch up to realign to that. The advertisement revenue that the media has been relying on, which is the print, with courtesy of print, is going to be diminished drastically, or has diminished drastically, because the target audience has migrated to the what? To the digital space. So this is the honest discussion that we need to have, both ourselves as government and the media, that what do we need to do to ensure sustainability of the media. And this is why, most recently, among other factors, I did constitute a sector working group consisting of both government officials and the private sector, the media sector representatives inclusive, so that we discern the operational environment, look at the changes which have taken place in that operational environment, the emerging issues, so that we come up with tangible recommendations or feasible recommendations with respect to what we need to do as an industry, to ensure sustainability of the media, among others. And I did consciously and deliberately ensure, when I was constituting this group, that the media was effectively represented in this sector working group. The chairperson of the Editors Guild, is a member of this group, sector working group. The chair of the Media Owners Association is in this group. A former president of the Editors Guild, Churchill Otieno, is in this team. A renowned media practitioner, Tom Mushindi, is actually the one chairing the thematic group, media thematic group within the sector working group. So we are thinking together as partners I don't want us to look at ourselves as government and the media as the media. We are all partners in this process.
We are sailing in the same boat.
And we need to have a honest discussion as to what do we need to do to reposition ourselves in this marketplace. It calls for creativity, it calls for innovation, it calls for certain reasonable levels of strategic agility and maneuverability.
All right, and so how much is the pending bills to the media houses?
It's about 1.5 now. We have been paying, I think even last week we did pay part of it to the media houses. We are determined to clear all the outstanding media bills, and it is a priority for us. And when we get the A in A, we will be paying periodically. But what I can state without fear of contradiction is that we will clear all that we owe the media. But correspondingly also, as government, there has to be rationality in the amount of money that we are spending courtesy of government advertisement. That is one space that I also want to clean up. I want to re-engineer the operations of the government advertisement agency. As we speak, we have managed to drastically reduce by a whopping 47% the amount of money that we were spending in that space, from 17 million shillings per week to 9 million shillings per week. Eventually, we need to ask ourselves one honest question. Do we still really need, based on the global digitalization process, do we still really need to do our advertisement on print as opposed to digital? And the answer is no.
But wouldn't you not be starving the media?
No.
Funds?
No. You see, it is not the role of government to finance the media. It so happens that the government has been spending money.
You're one of our
Yes, and this is why I'm saying we need to have a honest discussion. The role of government is not to finance the private sector. The role of the government in the same state is not to compete in business with the private sector. The role of the government is to focus on policy, legal, and regulatory framework to enable the private sector to thrive, the media inclusive. So what we should be discussing, working together with the media, is in this phase of digitalization, what mechanisms should we put in place to ensure media sustainability? Even if all factors were held constant, ceteris paribus, and we continued spending the same amount of money we have been spending on print media advertisement, let me tell you, that money is still a drop in the ocean compared to the amount of money that the media requires to survive.
All right, I still have a lot pending that I needed to pick your mind on, but we're running out of time, so I'll just make it as quick as possible, even when getting your response. But most of last year, 2023, you were busy in distributing, important product necessities like foodstuffs to rural folks in the parts of the country, especially in the Nyanza region, the Luo Nyanza region. That is unrelated to your docket. We can agree on that. But what message have you been sending? Are you cultivating a political interest in the ODM backyard?
Nothing could be further from the truth. My preoccupation right now is to deliver on the mandate that I've been tasked to execute by the appointing authority, His Excellency the President, within the functional domain of the Ministry of ICT. But there are certain instances where we have market failures. In a perfect market situation, I would not even go out of my way to distribute food. But you see, we are working with a situation where, depending on unfolding events from time to time, you will perhaps have people who have been displaced by floods. You would perhaps have people who are starving due to low food output levels. And as an agent of necessity, there's nothing wrong with facilitating the distribution of a government development agenda or priority project to sort out the famine situation. You see, the government has got the obligation to ensure that people are not dying of hunger. I'm the senior most government officer from that region. So when there's a food program, distribution program, as we distribute the food in Turkana, we equally need to support starving people in Nyanza. And that exactly is what I was doing. It has nothing to do with politics.
It doesn't have anything to do with politics.
No.
But what is your take on Azimio leader Raila Odinga's future? And how was it working with him before you parted ways politically?
Well, you see, it no longer lies within my preserve to determine or influence Raila Odinga's future. I did that when I was heading his presidential campaign in 2013, when I was the head of the Raila Odinga presidential campaign, and I was also his chief campaign manager. Politics is dynamic. The operational environment entails a lot of shifts and turns, dynamism. My preoccupation today is not to think about Raila Odinga's political future, but to think of how, as a Kenya Kwanza government, I can help augment the efforts of His Excellency the President to deliver on successful implementation of our Kenya Kwanza manifesto, on the basis of which we are elected to form this government. That is my preoccupation.
All right.
Everything else to me at this point in time is an irritating irrelevance.
All right. Yeah. And how is, in a minute, I need you to respond to this question. How is working with, how has it been for you working with the President William Ruto?
Perfect. I would not have worked with a better leader, if you ask me. Because, one, Ruto believes in strategic planning, and Ruto believes in results-based management. He's not going to micromanage you on a day-to-day basis, but he wants clarity in terms of objectives that need to be pursued, the expected outputs and the output indicators. But once that is agreed on at the beginning of the activity period, he allows you to provide leadership as a cabinet secretary to ensure that the same is implemented successfully. But at some point in time, definitely, he expects you to be accountable by way of results. That is why even soon we are going to have a cabinet retreat so that we take stock of what we have implemented within our line ministries so far. Yeah? What did we plan to do? What have been the milestones so far? What challenges have we faced and how do we overcome those challenges moving forward? What are the performance gaps and what do we need to do to close those gaps? That is accountability for results, and that is a working system. That is really what happens in the private sector. Clarify roles, responsibilities, objectives at the beginning of the activity period, ensure that you have got very clear expected outputs and output indicators, and then at the end of the activity period, there has to be accountability for results.
All right, and we've run out of time, but I will not close this session without asking the most important question concerning us, our colleagues in another media house, the Kenyan-owned media station, that is the government media station, that is KBC. In a minute, as we wind up, what are you doing to help KBC become a world-class state broadcasting like the BBC and the like?
It is appalling that KBC is punching below its weight in the marketplace. To me, KBC is a legacy institution. It is a brand that we need to position effectively in the market. And there's a lot of goodwill from Kenyans towards KBC. And even all media sector players, most of them are products of KBC, and they empathize with the situation at KBC. For clarity, when I was undergoing my vetting in Parliament for this position, I did commit to Kenyans that at some point in time, I should be held accountable by way of performance on the basis of revitalization of KBC, among other integral parameters. So far, my focus is on one, upgrade of the infrastructure. We have managed to get some indicative willingness to get support from the Spanish government to help us upgrade the existing infrastructure. That is number one. Number two, we have to modernize the KBC studios. That is work in progress. Number three, we have to reposition the content in light of dynamism in the operational environment so that we are really coming up with products or content that is aligned to the demands of the market. That we have to do. That is another area of focus. Number four, we have to enhance the level of staff motivation, okay? And most fundamentally, I want to see how we can leverage on whatever assets that KBC has to position that entity effectively in the marketplace from a financial perspective. Because one of the challenges we are having there is inadequate funding. Is it possible that we can leverage on some of the assets that we have for public-private partnerships so that they also become a revenue stream for KBC? That is a question that we need to answer, and we need to answer it as soon as yesterday. And I want to do that.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much.